I've been a dear friends with Gregory for some time. What can I say about Gregory? He is a extraordinary human. He invented the veggie burger. He brought organic food to the UK. We've been doing entheogenic experiments for a while, looking at how we can reconnect the body using the mind. So, Gregory.
Thank you, Carl. Well, I was going to tell you all that myself, but here I am. So, I'm going to start with something that you've probably heard before. It might well be one of the first things you ever heard. It goes like this. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Now, considering how many millions of children have heard that rhyme, it's extraordinary how few ever grow up and wonder what a star is. I never did until I was 18 years old on my first acid trip in Berkeley, when I stared into the sun. And I got a real feeling about it, and did a lot of other things in between, including veggie burger, but 40 years later that led to a book. But the main thing stars do, not the main thing they do, but they're producers of light. They're a local agent for the light force. And without light, there's no life. It powers our being. There's no human nature without light. It's the crucible of life. And the quality of that light is vital. The incoming light and the outgoing light. And it colors how we see the world, how we connect to the world, our emotions, how we feel. It's very important stuff. But what is light? And it's not some random emanation from accidental light bulbs in the sky. It's powerful stuff. And I'm not going to answer the question, what is light, because it's beyond our comprehension. It's even though our lives, every second of your life, you're recycling the light of the sun as a human being. And yet we have no idea, and we never will solve the mystery of what light is. But we can tune into it. And as well as tuning into it, us clever human beings have found all sorts of incredible things we can do with light, with the full spectrum of light, from radio, television, X-rays, MRI scans, optical cables. I mean, it's extraordinary capacity to carry information. It's incredible. And yet it's invisible, it's just a vibration. But we can do all this stuff with it. And yet we also tend to think that it's just random stuff. Only we can do this. There's nothing else going on with light unless we put it through our technology and do wonderful things with it. And that's kind of arrogant. And if any of you ever seen what squids do with light without added technology, it's pretty remarkable, their command of it. So, despite all the knowledge we have of light, there's still, we've lost some of the things that we used to be able to do with light in terms of receiving stuff without added technology. And if you go back to a period before television, before even books, when there were no other distractions, the night sky was one of the most awesome things, and people spent a lot of time looking at it. And when you're looking at stars, the actual vibration, the actual light of that star, photons that left it, are coming in at the back of your eyeball. And people sensed stuff from those vibrations. They got characters of stars from that, which is where astrology came from. And then astrology led to astronomy because it was nice to know what the mechanics were at the same time. And if you think it's a bit woo-woo, remember you can look in people's eyes and you can get whether they're filled with love or hate, fear or angst. You get emotions out of people's eyes, even if they're in a ski mask and you haven't got anything to look at. That's light coming out of the eyes, it's telling you stuff. And people got light out of those stars when they got information about it. And a simple example is Jupiter. Everywhere you went, People recognized Jupiter was the king of the planets. It was the big one. You could fit 1,000 Earths in Jupiter. Yet when you look up at the sky, Venus is bigger. So how did they do this? Well, they knew because they were tuning in to aspects of light that we can't do, not without telescopes and high-tech machinery. Now, another thing with light, we've always associated light with goodness. You've got the power of light, the forces of light against the forces of darkness. We connect it with knowledge when we see the light, when we shed light on things. We connect it with inspiration when we're enlightened. It's always associated with these positive, good aspects of human nature. And there's no accident to that. And then when the lights go out, we're gone, we die. And so where is the light while we're alive, where is it coming from? What is the source of this light? And whatever is expressing it, the inner light is powered by the light of the sun, or which is concentrated, of course, in the food we eat. And my brother and I spent, well, not together all the time, but spent 20 years introducing natural, organic, plant-based foods to the diet and introducing people to this weird concept of living in harmony with nature. When I first looked at, I called my first company Harmony Foods, and well, not my first company, but I looked harmony up in the dictionary, and it was described as an Oriental concept. Because all we knew in the West was conflict at that time. Harmony, what's that? So it is the sun's energy stored in plants that powers our inner light, and which we're recycling as the light of life. And when you look at the quality of that, because light carries information, and do you really want to eat foods that's been grown in dead soil, fed with chemical fertilizers, sprayed 10 to 15 times during its short life, with a variety of toxic herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and then it's been often processed, denatured, devalued afterwards before it gets into the packet to eat. That's not a good light to be powering yourself with. And eating vibrant foods, and I've seen this with many people over 4 or 5 decades, when people start to tune into living vibrant foods, it changes their life. And one of our customers at the restaurant used to be a British rail worker at Paddington, and he ended up opening England's first massage school, which is the sort of thing people do. And my brother and I began this in the 60s. We were both inspired by psychedelics to get out of the box and see a whole new dimension to food. That's what we did. But other people discovered other things, this weird thing called meditation, looking within. That sounded bonkers to people. In the 60s, looking within? What do you mean, looking within? And then they'd opened meditation schools, and people studied yoga. And they brought yoga out and opened yoga schools. Now, nobody ever had heard of yoga before, and I doubt if anybody in this room knows less than 3 yoga teachers in their circle of friends. We also had people taught alternative healing techniques, ways to be self-sufficient. And this whole thing sort of expanded. Other people initiated festivals. The Glastonbury Festival was started by Andrew Kerr and Arabella Churchill. They just paid Michael Leavis, the first one, 1971, they just paid him to rent the land. But the sort of music festivals began. My brother and I catered it, the first one. And then the two Steves, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, they thought everybody should have a personal computer. This is wonderful stuff. And bear in mind that in 1943, that Thomas Watson, the chairman of IBM, had predicted in 20 years' time there would be 5 computers in the world. Big ones. That was the way it was going until 2 acid-taking hippies changed the face of the planet, really. So when the inner light shines, we are motivated to do good things, to do things that are in harmony, that are for the benefit of humanity. But of course, in the 60s, we were starting to save the world, But then Uncle Sam got wind of what was happening. Jules touched on this a bit, particularly the fact that, all American kids were going anti-war. And America thrived on war. And they started sticking flowers in gun barrels. That scared the shit out of them. And they came down on us like a ton of bricks. They took away our agents of light. They took away the sacraments. But the foundations kept growing. We kept selling more and more food. Massage and yoga schools kept going. Apple computers did fairly well. And then came the raving 90s. And this was a reintroduction of psychedelics, and Shulgin's sacred magical compounds came into the diet, and this led to a whole new green awareness, a whole new harmony with the earth, and a 1,000-fold increase in what had started in the 60s. And we're still seeing that's fantastic. And certainly you can connect with all of this without drugs, without the food. People have done it. But when you're trying to break out of a really rigid status quo that's all you've known, climb out of a rut, psychedelics certainly help you to get out of that, or some major life-changing incident can trigger that. But still, our world is facing serious, serious problems. Most of them arise from this disconnect, from not being tuned to our planet. And we end up treating it like a bottomless larder for anything we want that's infinitely going to take out of it. And we have the infinite rubbish tip that we can dump everything in without any concerns. And it's as if every day is Black Friday for those people who are ripping out the assets of the earth and trying to get as much of it out as they can before it's all extinguished. So today, thank God today, there's a massive growing awareness of the repercussions that we suffer from our wanton abuse of our beautiful host planet Earth. And this is our best hope for change in an age when good ideas can